What is going on, everyone? Coming at you with another 2022 NFL draft video, and I can't wait for this one. It's going to be just good vibes all around. We are doing my dream fits for the 2022 NFL draft. So this is basically like picks that I would for sure be giving an A. Like everything from team need to a scheme fit for the player, to the appropriate value for the player. Like, these are just picks that would make so much sense, and I would just be raving about if these teams got these picks. So it's going to be a fun one. Speaking of grades and raving about picks, make sure you guys come back here on YouTube during the draft. I'll be live for the entire thing. Pick 1 through 270 or however many they're doing this year. It's going to be a blast. 3 of the best days of the year for sure, and I love spending that time with you guys. So we'll see you for the draft, and then just make sure you hit that like button. Really helps me out. Let's go ahead and get started. We're also going to be doing every single team in this video. I think this is the first draft video of the season where all 32 teams are going to be covered. So we're just going to be kind of going by division. You can see those timestamps if you want to skip to your team, but please do go back and watch the rest of the video after you do. All right. So we're going to actually start in the AFC South because no one really talks about them. The Jacksonville Jaguars, dream fit for me is George Pickens at the top of the second round. Now, his hype train's really picking up. It might be a little bit too much. It might be too much, actually, for the Jags to still get him at the very top of the second round there. And maybe they have to move up a little bit into the back end of the first to secure him. But the Jags really are missing that true number one X wide receiver, a guy that can run the whole route tree on the perimeter for this offense. You bring in Christian Kirk. I don't think he's that guy. I think he's a very talented player, but he's going to wear a lot of different hats. You have Laviska Shenault, who's unproven. You have Marvin Jones, regressing, kind of a deep threat, fine. Zay Jones, a Band-Aid. They need that young potential star receiver to grow with Trevor Lawrence. And for me, that's potentially George Pickens, who you can get really a steal in potentially as a guy that missed his final season. But I think people are realizing that, hey, if this guy played the whole year, he'd be in that conversation with guys like Garrett Wilson and Jameson Williams at the top of this class. So for me, if the Jags can snipe George Pickens right at the top of the second round, that would be a dream for Jags fans who probably also aren't getting a wide receiver in the first round unless they trade up. Then the Tennessee Titans. Zion Johnson is the dream fit here for the Titans. You look at their really entire roster, their only true gaping hole of a need is offensive guard. Right now, their left guard is slated to be Aaron Brewer, who's terribly undersized, Jamarco Jones, who they gave a little free agent contract to, Jordan Roos, Daniel Munyer. God, if they can get Zion Johnson with this pick, not only are they getting one of, in my opinion, the 5 best raw players, he's not raw, but just position value aside, one of the 5 best players in this class, I would be considering him in the top 10. I'm that high on Zion Johnson. So not only are you getting exceptional value, you're filling a gaping need, and Zion just happens to be an exceptional scheme fit. You look at what he did best at Boston College. He did everything well, but when they ran wide zone, which the Titans love in this Shanahan-style offense, he can get up on the move. He uses that leverage to just be an excellent reach blocker and sustain his block to the sideline. He is such a dream fit here, and I think he could be at least Pro Bowl caliber player in year one, similar to the day one impact of guys like Tristan Wirfs and Rashawn Slater for the Chargers last year, just obviously at guard instead of tackle. So that would be a dream for the Titans. Then the Indianapolis Colts, no first round pick here. So a dream for me is Sky Moore in the second round. The Colts, kind of inversely of the Jaguars, they need a slot guy and a guy that can really get open quick and early for Matt Ryan, who obviously isn't going to create a ton. He never has, but at 37 years old, you're just not expecting him even to do like what a Carson Wentz did last year, and that's to run around and make plays when the pressure gets in. So for Sky Moore, he's a guy that's going to be on time with Matt Ryan, excellent over the middle of the field, in routes, out routes, corner routes, drags, slants, whip routes, you name it. Going to be a phenomenal fit in that offense with Matt Ryan, and excellent value right in the early to middle second round there for Sky Moore. Then the Houston Texans. This is something I have talked about in a previous second round mock draft, but it is Zion McCollum to the Houston Texans at pick 237. This the 37th pick in the draft in the second round, which might sound early to some, but I kid you not, this guy is athletically speaking one of, if not the most athletic cornerback prospects we've ever seen. Low 4.3 speed, incredibly quick. He's 6'2", 200 pounds. He's going in the second round. I firmly believe that. So for me, this is not a reach. But on top of that, I've spent a lot of time talking about the Houston Texans need to draft players who not only fill needs, which they really need every position on the roster, so that's not going to be too hard. Not only draft good players, but they also need to draft players that are going to be willing to go there. They've had this kind of true rebuild. They've blown up this team, to say the least. And they've constructed this team in a way that it's a lot of underdog stories, guys that were rejected, that didn't have opportunities elsewhere. And they've really done an impressive job, in my opinion, of having this kind of chip on your shoulder culture. So I think the guys they draft this year, you want those kind of hardworking blue collar mentalities, if you will. And for me, someone that would really fit everything we just described is Zion McCollum out of Sam Houston State. Another reason he'd want to be there, by the way, is it's right up the street from Houston. He probably grew up a Texans fan. He was born south of Houston, so there's that. But also someone that was a team leader, a captain, and played at that Division I AA. He's a guy that's been rejected before. So he's someone that I think would come in and really buy in to what they're selling there and give you a potential star corner as well, by the way. This is not a reach, in my opinion. So Zion McCollum to the Houston Texans. And then we're going to move on to the NFC South with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And for me, a dream landing spot for the Bucs is not necessarily for this year, but it is Carson Strong into the third round. So this is if there's a slip of Carson Strong, which is expected because of the knee injuries. But look, Carson Strong for me, before it kind of became evident that his knee is an issue, was my number one quarterback. And I think a fully healthy Carson Strong, say the Carson Strong that we got to see for the first 6-7 weeks of his final season at Nevada, was the best quarterback in this draft. And you're also in this situation talking about putting him in a system with an offensive line and playmaking receivers and a pro style offense that would really fit his skill set well. So Carson Strong needs a red shirt year. Basically, the way I've heard it is doctors told him not to play last season. They said, you need to have surgery on this knee. You're going to be playing hurt. You're going to be slowed down. It's going to be incredibly painful. And he was like, well, is there going to be any added structural damage if I play? And they said, no, not necessarily. You're just going to be delaying the inevitable. And he was like, no, I want to be out there with my teammates. So he came out, he played the whole season, battled through injuries, had some super impressive, tough comeback moments where he is just in obvious pain. But as the season went on, you could see he couldn't really drive off of his lower platform. The arm talent that at the start of the season was Justin Herbert-esque diminished, and he couldn't move at all. So I think he's now had his surgery. He's going to have to sit out a whole season, just as they had said last year. But what a better spot to do that than behind Tom Brady as a third-round pick, where I don't think Tom Brady is back on the Bucs in 2023. I don't. I think with the way that the kind of retirement Miami situation played out, I think he's got even bigger things on the horizon as far as like signing with an ownership deal with the team that he plays for if he doesn't retire again after this season. So for me, you're getting, using a 3rd round pick to potentially get a new franchise quarterback. That would be an incredible spot for Carson Strong. And then for the Saints, not super exciting here. I kind of struggled with them because their roster is actually pretty filled out. They've got those 2 first-round picks. Those are pretty easy. Obviously, getting a guy like Chris Olave is someone I thought about mentioning here. Definitely would have been a good candidate, but I thought that was a little bit too chalky to put Chris Olave there next to Michael Thomas, the wide receiver duo out of Ohio State. I went down the board a little bit more and went with Dameon Pierce out of Florida because Pierce, you got to keep in mind, Alvin Kamara is likely facing suspension here for whatever happened in the offseason. And if not, they still need that sort of Latavius Murray, Mark Ingram complement to him because Alvin Kamara is not a guy that they want to, pound into the ground for 250, 300 carries. They like to have a complementary power back next to him, and they don't have it on their roster right now. So even with Alvin Kamara there, I love Dameon Pierce in the 4th round. But as Kamara is, facing suspension likely earlier on in the season, I think Dameon Pierce can give you a lot of what Kamara does. He's excellent in the receiving game. He has a lot of that great contact balance. But once Kamara comes back, Dameon Pierce to me gives them everything they need. And that's a ton of, just production and value, frankly, for a, mid 4th round pick for the Saints. And then the Atlanta Falcons, I have David Ojabo in the early 2nd round, and that might involve them moving up just a little bit. I think they have the 8th pick in the 2nd round, so maybe package a 4th or 5th round pick to come up to the top of the 2nd round, because I don't think he gets past, like, say, Detroit, I think is most likely. But anyway, the Falcons, for me, got to rebuild, man. This team sucks. I think they're in contention with the Houston Texans to be the worst team in the NFL next year, and that puts them in the Bryce Young sweepstakes, if you will. And I think they're kind of accepting of that. And David Ojabo is going to need a medical red shirt, at least for the first half of the season. But this is a guy, you're stealing potential top 15, maybe even top 10 value in David Ojabo. This is a guy with all of the traits to become an elite pass rusher at the next level. Juice, bend, get off. He's got a spin move that has really worked for him. He's a little bit slender, but even then, you can see moments of him using that speed to convert it to power, something he can definitely build up. So for me, you're stealing a ton of value. It's a guy that's going to help you lose now and win later, which is what the Falcons need. So David Ojabo, early 2nd round, even if they have to move up a little bit to get him. Then the Carolina Panthers, really tough one here because they have that number 6 pick, and then they don't pick again until the end of the 4th round. It is crazy. So obviously, with that 6th overall pick, I think a dream would be Evan Neal, but I didn't put him here. I went with someone with that 4th pick. What would be the best position to draft that could be a big impact for them at the end of the 4th round? And this is Charlie Kolar for me. For me, Charlie Kolar is someone I'm thinking about in the 2nd round. He's my number 2 tight end. I think he's like a diet version of Travis Kelce. Make sure you guys go check out my tight ends video. He's a beast. But for the Panthers, they don't have a good tight end. I know they extended Ian Thomas, but gosh, you cannot count on Ian Thomas to be your number 1 tight end. So Kolar, to me, if you get him, if you can get Evan Neal in the 1st round, then maybe bring in a Baker or a Garoppolo. This defense actually rounds out really well. I was impressed by some of the signings they made to fill out their roster. You look at Xavier Woods and Matt Ioannidis to kind of fill out some of the remaining needs on that defense. They even signed some good linebackers. So that defense actually could be poised to be, 5 to 10, top 5 to 10 next year. And then you could potentially fill your biggest needs other than quarterback in this draft with a tackle and a tight end in the 4th round in a deep class, and then go sign a Garoppolo or a Baker Mayfield. I could see the Panthers competing for the playoffs in a weaker NFC in that situation. Then we have the AFC East, the New England Patriots. This one's not going to be a surprise. It is Leo Chenal, but here it's in the second round. I haven't seen that first round buzz for him. I still think it's possible, but he is a souped up version of Donta Hightower as that do-it-all linebacker. I think Chenal has a lot more coverage upside. I compare him to Demario Davis. But if you just look at the way Bill Belichick uses his middle linebackers, I mean, he'll put them up right on the line of scrimmage. He likes 250-pound guys that can hang with offensive linemen and not get pushed around. Leo Chenal will be excellent at that. But I think he can also be kind of slowly brought along in coverage as well in a system that's very linebacker friendly. Leo Chenal could be a Pro Bowler sooner than later for the New England Patriots, in my opinion. And you can probably get him in the second round. Then the New York Jets, I went with Travis Jones in the second round. So I compared Travis Jones to his college, forefather, I don't know, in Falorenzo Fatukasi. The Jets just lost Fatukasi. I look at that interior defensive line. They don't have a whole lot of good run defenders there. I know you got Sheldon Rankins and John Franklin Myers can slide inside on passing downs. But Travis Jones, to me, can step in and give you 90+% of Falorenzo Fatukasi, who they did let go. Maybe they didn't feel like they needed that big thumping defensive tackle. I don't think that's necessarily what it was. I think, they had DJ Jones in San Francisco as well with the ties there with Salah, similar player. I think replacing that kind of early down defensive tackle and someone that can rush the passer as well on later downs in Travis Jones in the second round with either of their second round picks is a no-brainer in a really weak interior defensive line class, by the way. You're not getting a replacement if it's not Travis Jones right there. Then the Buffalo Bills, I went with Breece Hall, and where they draft him, this would, if they took him at 25, I don't know if that's a dream fit necessarily, still would be a pretty dang good pick in my opinion, but for me, the dream would be maybe you trade down, collect another couple picks, or you trade up with your second round pick, or maybe he just falls to you in the second round. But however it happens, if the Bills can get Breece Hall, who for me, position value aside, is a top 5 player in this draft, that's an absolute dream. They've shown that they really like these contact balance style backs, Devin Singletary, Zach Moss. Well, Breece Hall is those guys in an actual high-level NFL running back's body with speed and size. Those other guys are short and slow, and it gives you something that they haven't had, and that's a good running element to this team. They just haven't been able to, in bad weather conditions, kind of assert their physical dominance. They obviously have speed in the passing game and all that stuff, but this is a huge missing element. If they can get value and find Breece Hall at the right spot, love that spot. Then the Miami Dolphins, another tough one, a team that doesn't have a pick until, in the top 100 of this draft. They pick at 102. So I went with Cameron Jurgens, an offensive center out of Nebraska. The Dolphins, bringing over Mike McDaniel, are going to be running a lot of that wide zone style offense and are going to be looking for athletes on that offensive line. They've done a good job to fill that group out. You're still looking at probably Michael Dieter as your starting center. So Cameron Jurgens can come in and compete right away. He's a little bit more on the raw side. I don't know if he gives you an immediate impact, but you're talking third round here, like mid-third round. You're not expecting an immediate starter on the offensive line. But for me, Jurgens is that scheme fit. He's a really high upside pick. He might go off the board before 102. I think it's pretty close to where he's going to go. But as far as scheme fit and value and team need, Cam Jurgens is the slot there. Okay, NFC East. Philadelphia Eagles. I actually struggled with this one. They're another team that didn't have a lot of glaring needs. So I was just looking at their first rounders and I was like, who would be a great spot? Like who would I love to see go there? And I ended up on Jordan Davis out of Georgia. Just kind of looking at that defensive line a little bit more. They bring back Fletcher Cox on a 1-year deal. he's getting up there in age. He's shown regression. They have Javon Hargrave, but he is on the last year of his deal. He's going to be 30 years old. I don't know if he's going to be there for the long term there. I liked who they drafted last year. Name's escaping me, but 3rd round pick, uber athlete, but not a true early down like nose tackle like Jordan Davis. The question with Jordan Davis is he going to develop a skill set to rush the passer and return value as a top 15 player? Because we know he's going to be a dominant run defender. And for me, with Fletcher Cox there, with Brandon Graham there, with Javon Hargrave there, those are 3 incredible mentors for a young Jordan Davis to become basically Vita Vea. And I know, like, year one impact, Eagles fans are excited. Like, Jalen Hurts is your quarterback. You got to temper expectations a little bit. This team's loading up to get a quarterback in 2023. If Jalen Hurts breaks out and becomes a superstar and carries you to a Super Bowl, that's great. But this team very much has a full-on build of this team on their mind, and Jordan Davis can be a core player of their future for a long time. Then the Dallas Cowboys were sticking in the NFC East with another Georgia defensive tackle, Devontae Wyatt. You pull up that Cowboys depth chart for a second on the interior. It's ridiculous how bad they are up the middle. You have Neville Gallimore in his 3rd year. He has not shown much at all. Tristan Hill in his 4th year, very slowly coming along. Osa Odigizua is a good player, but probably a number 2 guy. Quinton Bohannon, Carlos Watkins, like, they are one of the worst, if not the worst, interior defensive line groups in the league. And Jordan Davis is 24 years old. He is a plug-in starter. They prefer smaller defensive tackles as well. He's a plug-in starter, a 3-down player, will defend the run and get after the quarterback. For me, it's appropriate value, a team that's trying to win right now. Hell, there's even recent reports that Devontae Wyatt has off-field concerns, which makes him the perfect Dallas Cowboy. So Devontae Wyatt at 24 to the Dallas Cowboys. Okay, the Washington Commanders are going to take Daxton Hill as my dream fit. And this is in a trade down scenario, actually, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I might as well just do next, because my dream fit for the Steelers is Malik Willis. So their trade down partner here is the Commanders at 11. I would be comfortable taking Daxton Hill with the 11th pick, but I don't think you need to. I think if you know you're higher on a guy and you can get him later, trade down for him. So the reason Daxton Hill is such a dream fit for me for Washington is not just they need another safety back there. You know, we'll pull up their depth chart, but they've got obviously the Arkansas kid. What's his Cam Curl? He's a good player, but beside him you got Bobby McCain, veteran Band-Aid, Derek Forrest, who I liked last year, but you're not counting on him. Jeremy Reeves, like they don't have a number 2 safety, and Washington runs one of these split safety defensive schemes that we talk about. They were towards the top in the league in quarters coverage last year, about 18%. They were also towards the top of the league in cover 6. So about, a quarter of their defensive play calls was split safety defense, which to me is the dream fit for Daxton Hill, where he can use that slot corner experience to move up and down, convert into man coverage, flip and cover a post, flip and cover a corner. It's a great scheme fit. It's a huge need. And at 20, this is exceptional value. Daxton Hill, to me, is a top 15 player in this class. I think he's a much better player than Kyle Hamilton, by the way. So I know a lot of fans aren't really where I'm at with Daxton Hill, and that's fine. But I'm telling you, if Washington gets him, that defense is complete because linebacker, you really need Jamin Davis to take a big step next year, but you've got the pass rush up front, you've got corners, you've got a great safety duo in Curl and Daxton Hill. And hell, if Daxton Hill, if you don't feel he's ready to play safety right away, they do kind of still need a slot corner. And Bobby McCain has also have some slot corner experience. So between McCain and Daxton Hill, you can figure out the right spot for next year to put them, and then Dax Hill is your long-term safety. But, he's going to play all your snaps for the most part. So I love that fit. That's the point of this video. I don't know how many times I've said it. I'll say it more. But the Pittsburgh Steelers in this world coming up to get Malik Willis with the 11th pick. Now, I'm hesitant on if Malik Willis is worth, even a first-round pick. I would question if any of these quarterbacks are. I think he's got way more issues with his game than most people recognize. And we'll see where he ends up going. But I do kind of believe he's going to be there at 11. So this is really the one spot where I can kind of get behind him playing, because and the one spot you can justify this high of a pick on him as well, because the Steelers now are in a division with Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow. They need elite at quarterback if they're going to consistently compete with those guys. Those guys aren't going anywhere for the next 10 years. So Malik Willis has a chance to become that good. Is it a high chance? No, I would say it's about a 10-15% chance. But the Pittsburgh Steelers are a phenomenal draft and develop organization. You put him in a spot where he's got playmakers. He's got Claypool, Deontay Johnson. He's got Pat Freiermuth. He's got weapons. He's got defensive support. I think this is a spot where he could work out, and a spot where they need to draft a guy like Malik Willis, because the Steelers aren't going to suck. They haven't had a losing season in 15 years. They aren't going to be in a position to draft one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks next year. This might be an opportunity to take a swing on upside, similarly to when the Texans traded up for Deshaun Watson, or the Chiefs traded up for Patrick Mahomes. There's a chance, right? There's always a chance, and that's what they're hoping for here. But back to the NFC East for our last team. Not a super exciting one. It's the New York Giants. They're pretty much chalk with their first couple picks. I think they go O-line with one of them and either pass rush or corner with the other one, and the players that they're going to be considering has been beaten to the dirt at this point. In the second round, I couldn't really come up with a great answer, but how about in the 3rd or 4th round, filling that atrocious tight end room with some of the depth in this class? And the guy I'd like to see is Daniel Bellinger, who's actually almost a mirror image of Dawson Knox coming out of Ole Miss, as a guy that is a really good athlete, showed a ton of flashes in the receiving game, blocked pretty well, but was entirely underutilized, and his talent went misrepresented in college. And I think with the reason we make that comparison as well is Brian Daboll did a great job with Dawson Knox's athleticism and getting him up to speed as a very functional weapon of that passing game. So Daniel Bellinger, 3rd, 4th round, something that is a very familiar skill set for Brian Daboll that he could integrate very quickly into that offense. Back into the AFC North, the Cincinnati Bengals really don't need to spend a lot of time on this one because it's so obvious. It's Tyler Linderbaum to the Bengals. They went into the offseason knowing that offensive line needed to be worked up. They've done a good job to the point where they're probably fine rolling out who they have next year. But if Tyler Linderbaum, who's shorter and a center where positional value, we saw Creed Humphrey go into the late 2nd round last year, he just might slide down the board a little bit more than you'd think. And if he does, the Bengals got to grab this guy, because they're going to go from bottom 5 offensive line last year to maybe top 5 next year. And not only is it great value and a need, but the scheme fits great. At least in their run game, where they like to run outside zone, Tyler Linderbaum is one of the best outside zone center prospects you'll ever see. Then we have the Cleveland Browns, and the Cleveland Browns have declared who they are, right? As an organization, Deshaun Watson, Kareem Hunt, they're almost unapologetic about it. So why not, why hide from it? Just take Adam Anderson in the 6th round. You need an edge player. Adam Anderson, before rape accusations, was probably going to be a 1st round pick. There you go, Cleveland. You got another one. The Baltimore Ravens. David Ojabo's the obvious answer here. I've talked about that so many times in my mock draft. I want to give Ravens fans a little bit of something else, but that's my true answer here. And we already did David Ojabo for the Falcons, but the Michigan connection with Harbaugh and the new defensive coordinator coming over, the need, the connection between David Ojabo and Odafe Owe being high school teammates, like, that's the real answer here, but we did already do David Ojabo, and they're in a weird spot now because, I don't think you take him at 14. You'd have to kind of find a way to get into that 25 to 40 range to get him, so you'd probably have to trade to get him. But another answer here for the Ravens is Jelani Woods out of Virginia, and I know what Ravens fans might be thinking, what the heck, we got, Mark Andrews, we got Nick Boyle. Well, for me, Jelani Woods can get you back to when Lamar won an MVP with those heavy packages that teams just didn't know how to defend, when they also had Hayden Hurst, who just kind of had that straight line speed to leak out, be a big run after catch target, a red zone threat for Lamar. So that's his role in year one. But, I don't know how healthy Nick Boyle is, how long he's going to be on this team. It's not like Jelani Woods is some day one superstar. So I think he gives you a long-term number 2 tight end next to Mark Andrews, but he can contribute in a role. They haven't had that depth at that tight end position since Lamar's MVP year. They would find ways to use him, and he'd be a super easy, investment in the 3rd round. So either the 76th pick or the 100th pick, either one I'd be totally fine with. All right, NFC North, the Green Bay Packers, obviously beyond any of the receiver fits that we've talked a lot about. How about we go into the 4th round? They can redeem themselves for the Josiah DeGuara pick, which was a 3rd round pick years ago. They can get an actually good player at that sort of wing tight end H-back position that they're looking for and take Chig Okonkwo, who I just did my top tight ends video over the weekend. Go check it out. But he, to me, is a hybrid of Kyle Juszczyk because he loves to block. He's, kind of built between a tight end and a running back, like 6'2", 240 pounds, good with the ball in his hands. But he's not quite as good of a blocker as Juice. But he's also got a little bit of Jonnu Smith, who Matt LaFleur was familiar with in Tennessee. So just kind of that wing tight end, someone that can be lethal in 12 personnel with all the play action they like to run. And most of all, you get Josiah DeGuara off the field in that role, who is just terrible. I mean, a costly drop in the NFC Championship, not a great blocker, offers nothing in the receiving game. He's terrible. It's a horrible pick. So you can redeem yourself by getting Chig Okonkwo in the 4th round. The Minnesota Vikings, this is going to be a 1st rounder here, Derek Stingley. I think this is about the floor for Derek Stingley. I know there's a lot of concerns with the injuries, and I get it, but he's healthy now. It doesn't seem to be a concern for him, or I don't know how big of a concern NFL teams are going to see it. That's up to the doctors, right? But what I do know is a healthy Derek Stingley is one of the 5 best players in this class, and this is a big need for the Vikings, is cornerback. They bring back Patrick Peterson. They've got some veteran Band-Aids there. You have Cam Dantzler, who's maybe fine, but it's a huge need. It's a huge value. And the cherry on top is you have the mentor there for Patrick Peterson, with Patrick Peterson. If the question for Derek Stingley is how big of a professional is he going to be, is he going to buy in? If that's the question, it's not a big question for me, but if that's the question, what better than to have Patrick Peterson, who is, I can't think of a much better cornerback mentor, and he's an LSU connection. So there you go. Vikings, Derek Stingley at 12 would be an A-plus pick in the 1st round, and I think it's pretty likely as well. Then the Chicago Bears, no 1st round pick. So I'm looking at that 1st pick, got to get Justin Fields some help, and if Bernard Raymond can fall to the 39th pick, which, I think late 1st, early 2nd is about where he's going to go. Dream spot. Obviously, huge need. Offensive tackle is a huge weak spot for them. I think the value, as we mentioned, is good, but scheme fit as well, very much so. Bernard Raymond is an outstanding lead blocker with the get off to run what now under Luke Getsy, the new offensive coordinator coming over from Green Bay to Chicago, is going to be another implementation of this Shanahan wide zone play action heavy offense. So from a run block perspective, he will hit the ground literally running on day one. And the nice thing about these systems is a lot of times with the play action, you can protect your offensive tackles with a lot of play action, because your pass protection basically becomes run blocking, where Bernard Raymond is dominant. So you can kind of shelter him a little bit as he gets up to speed as a pass protector. He's only been playing the position for a couple of years. So Bernard Raymond to the Bears at pick 39. Then the Detroit Lions, with either the last pick in the first round or the early second round pick there. How about you fill out that wide receiver room with Jahan Dotson? Excellent value, and he, to me, is kind of the missing chess piece for what's shaping up to be a pretty good skill group. You have DJ Chark as your true vertical deep threat. You have TJ Hawkinson and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and even DeAndre Swift as kind of short to intermediate targets. And then you have Jahan Dotson, who can do kind of all three layers. He can play as a deep threat, but he's best in the middle of the field, in routes, posts, even, corner routes, out routes. That's where he thrives, but he can operate in the short game as well. He fills out that wide receiver room. Him paired with a potentially dominant offensive line. I mean, that gives you a super appealing place for... It just sets you up so well, because you could maybe attract, like, what if Kyler Murray does force his way out, or what if the next great veteran quarterback becomes available? It puts you in a position to go make a move for that. It puts you in a position to put a rookie in a place to succeed next year. And hell, it puts you in a position to compete with Jared Goff next year, who has gone to a Super Bowl before with a great team around him. This is a roster overhaul worth dreaming of for Detroit. So Jahan Dotson, right around the end of the first, early second. All right, we got 8 teams left. The LA Chargers, Jameson Williams at pick 117. Where have we seen a player fall to the Chargers at 17 because of injury? Derwin James, and now Jameson Williams. Look, he's incredibly fast. He's Deshaun Jackson in his prime. I don't think you need to overcomplicate it. And you put that with Justin Herbert, who's probably the best deep ball thrower in the NFL right now, at just putting the air under the ball and just freaking launching it so Jameson Williams can go get it and outrun everybody. That's a missing chess piece for this offense. Now, they got to still figure out the tackle situation. Hopefully you could do that through free agency in this situation, but God, that would be so fun, giving them a vertical aspect that they just don't have. The Raiders, again, a team that doesn't have an early pick. They don't pick until the 86th pick. But I went with Daniel Falele out of Minnesota. Big need, right tackle. I think this is a good value for him. I'm becoming a little bit uncomfortable with Falele in the second round because his testing numbers were just so poor. Now, he's 380 pounds. He's not going to test that well, but this isn't, Evan Neal or anything like that from an athletic perspective. But what I will say about Falele is he is a great fit for a kind of power run game. And with Josh McDaniels coming over, he's thrived with a guy like Trent Brown, or even going back to like Nate Solder. He loves these big thumping offensive tackles. And I can't think of a much better scheme for Daniel Falele other than just going to the Patriots straight up. And it's a huge need for the Raiders and a good value there in the third round. Then the Chiefs. This is a reason I don't think receiver in the first round is necessarily a given, because I think they might have their eye on Calvin Austin out of Memphis, who they can probably get there in the second round. If not at pick 62, at pick 50, whatever they have from the Dolphins. But did you guys know Tyreek Hill was actually only 5'8", 5'9"? I thought he was 5'10". But his official measurements are right around there. So Calvin Austin's only an inch shorter. He ran a 4.340. Now, he doesn't have Tyreek Hill speed. Nobody does. But I do know that he has absolute blazing speed. And the other thing about Calvin Austin is he's a vertical receiver. He played on the perimeter for Memphis. He has a good release package. He's got excellent feet. He can get deep. His best route running showed on comebacks and posts and ability to get vertical. He's got long arms. He's got good hands. He's just a little bit shorter. I think Brandon Cooks is probably a better comparison for Calvin Austin. He's again a little bit shorter. I think with Austin, it's going to take a team with an imaginative way to use him and a quarterback that is accurate throwing the deep ball, because as a deep threat, he just doesn't have a large catch radius. So you need a quarterback that can, put it in a smaller window down the field, and that's Patrick Mahomes. So they have a role for him vacated by Tyreek Hill. They've targeted players similar to him with Hill and Mecole Hardman. They value speed. They have a quarterback that can unlock him. Calvin Austin could give you an adequate replacement to Tyreek Hill, which is about as good as you can say, because you can't replace Tyreek Hill. But with the pieces they've already brought in with Juju, MVS, you still got Kelsey, you still have Hardman, you have Calvin Austin. That would be plenty for Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion. Then the Broncos don't pick until the end of the second round. Only a few needs left on this team. But how about Trey McBride if he could fall to them at the end of the second round? I do think it's possible. It's a little bit of a stretch, but wouldn't be the craziest fall in the world. Obviously, you have the Colorado connections. That speaks for itself. But beyond that, Trey McBride, I think, fits great in what's going to be the Green Bay offense here, which is, going to be of that Shanahan descent, where you want that blocking number one tight end up front. You want a guy with speed on crossing routes that can leak out and be a run after the catch threat. I know they have Albert O, but you're going to see a lot of 12 personnel in this offense. You do in any of these Shanahan style trees. So we are going to give them Trey McBride to pair with Albert O. Who the starter is, I don't think matters all that much. I think you'll see an equal amount of both. But just a lot of strong connections, a great scheme fit, and would be an excellent value at the end of the second. All right, the NFC West. Not a lot of first-round picks in this division, so we had to go down the board a little bit. Starting with the Niners, who don't pick until the end of the second round due to the Trey Lance trade last year. They need offensive line help. Maybe not immediately, but maybe immediately. They lost Laken Tomlinson, so Aaron Banks was drafted in the second round last year. Okay, we'll see. I thought that was a pretty big reach, but he's probably slated to start. You got Alex Mack back into his career at center, and Daniel Brunskill at right guard. They need some help on that interior offensive line. So we're going to give them Dylan Parham, who has the flexibility to play center or guard, uber athlete, excellent scheme fit, will be a weapon of a run blocker for Kyle Shanahan, and an excellent value. I've got him right in that second to third round territory, so you get him at the end of the second, home run pick. Then the Seattle Seahawks, I have them taking a quarterback with one of those 2 second-round picks. And I think if Matt Corral could slip to them, he'd be an excellent fit. I think Matt Corral fits that offense very well because of his ability to kind of get the ball out and be accurate over the middle of the field. So off of play action, moving pockets, he would be a great fit. He's not going to be Russell Wilson, but he does have a similar skill set to what they had in Russell Wilson. And I don't think it's the worst place for a quarterback. I think their team in general, there's a perception that they're going to be one of the 5 worst teams in the league, and they don't need to draft a quarterback because they're going to be looking at one next year. I really don't think that's their timeline. I think they're trying to win now in their own kind of weird, effed up way. And I think Matt Corral in that offense can work really well and give you a potential starter on a cheap rookie contract. I don't know if he's going to emerge as this elite quarterback that you want to give a second contract to, but I think he fits their timeline. I think he fits their scheme. Talent-wise, it's a good fit. You got Noah Fant, you got DK Metcalf, the Ole Miss connection, you got Tyler Lockett. I think it could work. So either the 40th or 41st pick there. Then the Arizona Cardinals, I have them going with Drake London if he could fall to them. Now, I know that's a little bit unrealistic because of how most people view him. For me, he's kind of more of a first, second round guy. But if he could fall there, I've talked about Drake London needing to be utilized with a accurate quarterback on back shoulders. I think that's Kyler Murray. But I also think when Kyler's running around doing his thing, you can either throw it up to DeAndre Hopkins or you can throw it up to Drake London. Like in improv situations, that's electric. Like good luck trying to stop that consistently. But if you can't get him, which you probably can't, I have a little bonus here. And it's either Zion Johnson, who we talked about to the Titans, or even down the board a little bit, Zach Tom out of Wake Forest, who's really climbing up boards. Originally he was like the 40th ranked tackle, and he was a my guy for me because he was like tackle 12 for me, which was way higher than consensus. But lately he's got a lot of hype going. He's probably going to go third, fourth round. Just uber athletic, some of the best technique in this class, just not great play strength. He's kind of a poor man's Zion Johnson in a lot of ways. But I've talked about this before. If you're the Arizona Cardinals, I love the idea of getting Kyler as many short offensive linemen as possible. I'm not trying to be insensitive. It's just true. Like Kyler struggles to throw over the middle of the field. So if you can decrease the height of your offensive linemen, you're going to let him see those throwing lanes much better. And Zion Johnson, Zach Tom, positional flexibility. They're shorter guys. I think they fit the system really well as well. They could use like one more piece on that offensive line. So, either way, you get Zion in the first or Zach Tom in like the third round would be kind of dream fits for me for the Cardinals. Then we have the LA Rams to wrap this all up. What a banging video this has been, but they don't pick until the 104th pick because they don't care about picks. They need help on that offensive line, really at guard. So I'm going to give them Luke Goedeke or Goedeke. I'm not entirely sure what the right way to say that is, but he fits the scheme really well. He's an athlete. He's someone with tackle experience. We've seen that now with multiple starters for them, guys that had tackle experience that slid into guard. Right now, their starting option is Bobby Evans, who I think played tackle at Oklahoma. They have David Edwards was a tackle at Wisconsin. So very similar kind of archetype of the players that they've looked for at that position before. Excellent value in the third round, I think is about where he could go. Really good run blocker and athlete out of the snap. And I think would probably beat out Bobby Evans for that left guard spot and give you a starter in the third round on that offensive line. So we made it all the way through. I really hope you guys enjoyed. That was just a joy to record. Please do hit that like button if you did. What players are you dreaming about your team taking on draft day, just a week away? And of course, come back here for the draft for my live stream. It's going to be a riot. We'll have live grades, reactions, analysis. We'll have highlights as we go. It's going to be so much fun, and we'll see y'all there. Peace out.